work being developed by Lazy Bear Games, this one was published by Riot Forge and I believe is the last of their League of Legends collaboration, which is a shame because they've released some great games. Bandle Tale, a League of Legends story, takes things in a different direction, but despite what you might have heard, this is nothing like Stardew Valley. It centres around the very cute and magical creatures based in and around Bandle City. Have Lazy Bear bought us a game that's in a league of its own? Or has this yarn gone off on the wrong thread? Well, my name's Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp, and now let's find out. The story centres around your self-created little Yordle living in Yarnville. It's an isolated little island, interconnected with others via portals. Now unfortunately something has disrupted their portal network, and thus their very way of life. That's where hopefully you step in to try and help with the situation. And as such, throughout the 40 or so hour long story, you'll be repairing the portals with the help of friends like Tristana and facing different antagonists like Vhagar. Gameplay is where things get very interesting and also probably much more confusing than you might have expected. While on the face of it, it looks like a very cozy, relaxing and enjoyable farming simulator, it's actually nothing of the sort. Well, not entirely. I know I might have said it's nothing like Stardew Valley, I guess there are some similarities. You've got a quest log, which is shown on the right hand side of the screen, allowing you to quickly switch between your active quests by pressing up and down on the D-pad, but my word, I wish they'd included an option to minimise this, as it takes up literally a quarter of the screen on Switch. You can quickly jump into your quest menu by pressing X, but there's no minimap, which would have been useful for quickly tracking where you're going next, or at least some kind of on-screen indicator. Still, there are a few nice touches, like being able to go into the quest log, choose the name of the person you're looking for and it takes you straight to the map. The quests in this game are very fetch heavy, and it's easy enough to control your Yordle. They do have a stamina bar, which will actually replenish when you're not running around. But I don't know about you, something about this run just looks a little bit janky and it feels a bit unusual as well. There's a momentum to the movement that doesn't sync up quite right. I think it's particularly noticeable on the Switch version, with some evident frame pacing issues. Now, you're not just doing fetch quests. You carry your home on your back. That is right, it's a backpack that unpacks into your home. That's awesome. You can go inside, craft new items, place them where you want, rotate them, build a workbench. I love this concept, it's very cool and it made a lot of sense to me. Then, however, you actually have a number of different facilities which are facilitated by that backpack. So from the outside, you can unroll different carpets. One of them allows you to serve up food to the locals with different dishes that can be made, and then a cooking minigame of sorts which takes place where you'll have to meet the orders, cooking dash style, with customers getting fed up and walking off if you're too slow. Alongside this, there's also a party planning element. You'll throw parties for the inhabitants, then spend time running round collecting up their emotions, I guess, and throwing them into the side of your house. Again, the different things you have placed around will affect the amount of emotional response they have, and also the items that you actually choose will please them to varying degrees. However, you don't really know which is going to do what until you actually try it. There's also a shop you can open from your backpack, selling items to people and making a bit of bunts. Now, just saying that out loud, it sounds absolutely awesome. But unfortunately, there's far too much conflation of systems for me, and not enough of it is nearly clear enough for the player. Let's say I have a quest that asks me to host a festival in a specific area. I'll get to that area, unpack my backpack, go to the menu to start off the festival, and realise quite quickly that I don't have something that I need. Unfortunately, Bandle Tale doesn't necessarily want to tell me what that is. That then means that I have to go through various menus trying to figure out exactly what it is that I need. Once I've finally discovered what that might be, then I need to figure out how I get it. Now, my issue isn't that you have to actually use your own brain. It's that there are so many different things you could potentially do, and with no indicator of how to eventually get the item that you need, you'll spend a lot of time just looking through different items, menus, areas, trying to work out what you have to do. Then there might be several steps to get there. Let's say you've unlocked the greenhouse and you need a specific thing. Well, it may not even share the same name. So you find yourself running around trying to find an ingredient or a seed to plant, but with the ever-present thought that it could well be a dead end, and there were many times where I did hit dead ends and I was just doing completely the wrong thing. This could have easily been rectified, and it's compounded by the skill tree system. Now, in another very cool idea, everything you carry out in the world gains you these emotion points which stock up over here. Then when you sleep at night and dream of all the wondrous things you've done, those are banked and you can spend those within the skill tree. Now there are various different skills here, as you can see. The world is quite literally your oyster. But wait a minute, what do they actually do? Well, there we hit another major flaw, in my opinion, of Bandle Tale. I haven't got a Scooby-Doo what they do. You can look at more information, but that will simply show you the different components of what they offer, but it won't actually give me a little text box that says, well, this is the item you'll need when you're cooking. When combined with blah blah, you can do this, this and this, and that is exactly what the game needs. I don't think that would be hand-holding, it wouldn't be offering too much information, but it would mean you had a clear goal in your mind and you knew exactly how to get to it. The reason being, much of the story progression is tied behind this skill tree, and then that skill tree is linked to those quests, but it felt to me like two vital systems that weren't talking to each other. It's funny because I've seen a lot of people talk about how relaxing and chilled out it is, and there are times for sure when you know what you're doing or you've followed that linear fetch quest style mission and got to the right area where it feels relatively chill. Throwing those parties is enjoyable, but once you've hit the 4th, 5th or 6th roadblock with no actual explanation as to how to meet that mission, it does get tedious. Now, at the risk of sounding like I absolutely hate the game, I have to go further on this subject. Quests are shown with a question mark, so when there's something there that you can do, say it's a character or an item in the world that you need to interact with, there'll be a question mark above it. If it's grey, it means you don't have everything you need, and if it's gold, it means, yep, this is something you have to use to progress. But here's a prime example of what I'm talking about, where the systems don't seem to talk to each other. You might see a question mark above, say, a workbench. Then in your head you're thinking, great, I know that there's something here, it's a gold question mark. There's something here that I have to craft, and I have everything I need to do so. But when I go into it, in my opinion at least, there should be a question mark next to the thing that you need to craft. But there isn't. That same issue affects things like the skill trees. If there's a specific skill I need, put a little question mark next to that skill, or a star, or some symbol, so that I know. Now, unfortunately, these issues are intrinsic to the gameplay, and they certainly, at least for me, hindered my experience. What I will say is, on the flip side of all of that, Bandle Tale does a lot of things right. Navigation is very fast. It doesn't do that silly thing where you drop down from lack of stamina. With the stamina replenishing as you go around, you can harvest anything you want. Upgrades to things like your backpack are super simple. If you have the ingredient, just click a button and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, your backpack just got bigger. Also things like crafting and building, they're relatively straightforward. All the developers would need to do is give you a little more information and context for firstly the items you can craft, the skills in your skill tree, and then the aspects of a quest. Will you still enjoy yourself in those 40 hours? Absolutely. You'll eventually figure out what it wants you to do in certain areas. There is a really good game in here, but those systems just don't come together quite right for me. I give gameplay 12 out of 20. The controls are relatively good, with that movement feeling a little unusual. It could have been much more streamlined. Control score 14 out of 20. Bandle Tale looks delightful. I have to say I love this art style, and I think it really suits these characters. The Yordle like to stay away from humanity, they're knitting constantly, and the whole world looks like it's been knitted together. It's bright, vibrant, colourful. Performance, as I mentioned, isn't perfect on Switch. There are some real frame stutters, so that needs some work, but I didn't have any crashes. There are some really nice dynamic weather effects as well, which are actually synced to the audio, so when the rain starts, a different musical track plays. That's a nice touch. What I will say though, is there are some very short musical loops which are quite repetitive. Certainly every time you sleep, the soundtrack starts from the beginning. It's not the first game to do it, but it's one of those loops that actually began to irritate me over time. For me, the visuals and performance, they're actually the highlight of the game. With that said though, the performance stutters really do affect enjoyment. Visuals and performance combined, they score 15 out of 20. Although the actual music itself is lovely, the repetition does bring that score down for me. It gets 14 out of 20. Bandle Tale: A League of Legends story is going to set you back £19.99 or your regional equivalent, and it's a 1.9 gigabyte download. Now, as I say, it's 40 hours long. There's a lot of content in here, and it comes from Lazy Bear, who have some cracking games. For me personally, the systems just don't gel well enough, but there is something here. It would definitely be a wait for a reasonably deep sale for me, about 50%. I give value 13 out of 20. Bandle Tale has every ingredient to be absolutely great, but it doesn't use them to the best of its abilities in my opinion. Still, reviews are super subjective. You might love it. Check out some other reviews, see what they think. It gets a SwitchUp score of 68%. Let me know what you think of this one. I feel like I was super harsh, but really I'm just trying to articulate a clear representation of how the game plays. Thanks to all of you that enjoy the content, to our Patreons and our members, and as always for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!